What's up, traders? It's your boy Vincent Mokotedi, the trader who trades publicly and live on YouTube. So, without wasting further time, let's recap what happened on the weekly Forex forecast. I did mention that I'm structured to the upside, and quite frankly, right now we are at our demand zones, pressuring the selling momentum that is coming in to fade. Now, let me see, or let me dive deeper into what to look for or what might happen going into the end of today and the bitter end of the week. Now, as you can see, we are already having a tail on this candle. Now, that simply says that after this candle, we'll be having a shooting star. A confirmation will be an engulfing candle that just comes above here to make sure that we do have a bullish confirmation. And then after the entry, continuation to the upside. Now, this is a fantastic signal if you follow it. What I can tell you from now on is that we only do have a bullish bias on this level or below these demand zones on the euro and the dollar. Now, the target for this is 1.1728. This is the target. So anything else, we would not be looking for any selling opportunities unless we were to break the weekly break of structure and then a continuation to the downside. But until then, everything else is still structured to the upside. Even if we might put our Fibonacci retracement, you will still see that this is exactly within the lines of the 50% Fibonacci retracement. If we do get an extended pullback, of course, like this one, we might bounce at the 61.8 Fibonacci, and then a continuation will almost be imminent. So today, I think the market might just continue up to the upside because of the Friday pullback that continued on Monday and in the early hours of today on Tuesday. And then from there, the continuation to the upside is imminent. Most traders should be looking for buying opportunities. Any selling opportunities we will ignore unless we had to break the break of structure right here at 1.1542. Now let's go to the pound and the dollar to see what it has in store for us. Traders, even more beautiful and precise is the pound and the US dollar. With that being said, we have been through testing the first demand zone, which we did not get any significant bias to the upside, of course, and a continued pullback came in to test the second place to look for buying opportunities, of course, which is the demand zone at 1.3366. This is a great place to look for buying opportunities. This is what I'm expecting to see and take out structure at 1.3471. This would be the target. This is what I am targeting. Now, let me remove this. Let's get into this. Now, from the beginning of the weekly Forex forecast, as you would remember, we did mention that we might be looking at something like this to the continuation, and from Monday and the early hours of Tuesday, we are still on the same structure that looks like we are about to sell and continue to the upside. Now, in here, if you do pay close attention, of course, we might be seeing a candle. Do you see this? This is like a falling hammer. And of course, if this bullish moment candle closes like this with a tail, of course, and with a tail inside, this would be a bullish momentum. We wouldn't need to wait for it to reach the second demand zone. As why, one thing that you can see is on the euro and the dollar, what we do have is the euro has passed through the first demand zone and the second demand zone, and it is right here trying to gather momentum. so that it can continue to the upside. But on the pound and the dollar, what we do have is, unlike the strength in the dollar versus the euro, as opposed to the strength in the dollar versus the pound. Now the pound, we still have not reached our second place of demand zone, but we are now getting bullish patterns and formations. But we do discuss this with the real account traders community. We discussed this with the DXY, the dollar index. The dollar index also has already reached the second demand zone, and this is why we do take signals in here with with confidence. And with that being said, this is why I would like to go long on this currency pair. So in here we do have something like this: the first demand zone, the second demand zone, and it looks like we might just continue to the upside to take out structure at 1.3471 to make last week's high and make this new high from last week, which is 1.3471. Now, with that being said, traders, this is the pound and the dollar, and we will only be looking for selling opportunities, of course, if we do break this weekly break of structure to the downside, and then continuation to the downside will be imminent. But until then, everything that is in here is still in place and strongly favoring the buying opportunities or the buyer side. We can also put the Fibonacci retracement in here so that you can see maybe this is 38.2. This, of course, look at this. This is 38.2 Fibonacci retracement. We have not yet reached the 50%, which the 50% we will reach only if we do break a little bit below this second demand zone that we do have here, and then a continuation to the upside to take out structure and make a new high at 1.3471. This would also be a fantastic setup. But for now, we are waiting for this candle to close, and then the confirmation will be done. Either way, either this candle continues to close and then gives us momentum to the upside, or the invalidation do come around, and then on the New York session, because I will not be discussing the New York session with the free YouTube channel, and then this is still a great place to look for buying opportunities, of course. But what this can tell us, before we even reach to the currency pair called the euro and the pound, it can tell you that the pound today, it has more momentum than the euro. And remember, we do not trade or deal with the euro and the pound this week, as it didn't have any clear direction. So clear direction would give us a bias, but for now we do not have a bias. That's why it's neutral, and we didn't discuss it. You can check the weekly forex forecast to understand why I say so and what I meant last week when we said we will not be dealing with it from last week, and this week we are still not dealing with it because it does not have any clear structure. So with that being said, traders, let's go straight to the euro and the Canadian dollar. And traders, before we get to the euro and the Canadian dollar, what I would like for you to remember is joining the real account traders community is very simple and easy. All you have to do is register under the exclusive XNS link, verify your trading account details, of course, and then fund the minimum of 100 US dollars or more to enjoy more profits frequently. So with that being said, traders, after that, you send proof of registration to WhatsApp me at 06806053332. Now, this would be a fantastic decision that you ever take, because you will level up, show that you are very serious about your trading career. We do not host any demo account or trial account traders in here. We only deal with real account traders membership. There is no blowing accounts in here. There's a group of positive minded traders who share their ideas, but obviously all of us, they would have to follow me because of the broader perspective I have on the currency markets. And you do not only get 6 currency pairs analysis on the real account traders community. Like here on YouTube, you get all the currency pairs, even the ones that you get from special request. And not only that, you get also the London session analysis like this one that we are having right now. You also have the New York session analysis that you guys never experienced due to the fact that this is a free YouTube channel where I explain 6 watch lists that are correlated pairs to help you understand better about the markets. And also, you get a trading course if you are new to this. This will help you understand the market trading analysis, the charts, and the psychology behind trading very easy. And you also get trading strategies that I'm using, the very same ones that will allow you to see the levels that I put here that you can be able to put yourself when it comes to trading, of course, without having any trouble, of course. And with that being said, traders, I would like for us to go and continue to see what the trading charts have in store, which is back to the euro and the Canadian dollar. Now, with the euro and the Canadian dollar, it's very simply put, we have never went anywhere else from Monday. This was just this uh, an inside day, of course. No new low, no new high, but I do expect to see this just like in previous currency pairs that we've explained. We do have a strong shooting star right here that might look like a continuation to the upside to take out structure at 1.6466. This would be a great place to take target and to take profit at. Now, why do I say this might not necessarily get to this? Because the number one, the Canadian dollar is weak. The Canadian dollar is weak. So with that being said, this allows us to, this allows us to explain deeper about this. Now, the euro is clearly stronger from last week. The euro is clearly the currency pair to buy, and the Canadian dollar is clearly the currency pair to sell this week. So from Monday, the currency pair, I shouldn't be drinking cold drinks early in the morning. They mess up my health. So with that being said, excuse me for that. So traders, the Canadian dollar is weak, and on Monday it continued to fall to the downside. But the euro did also fall against the US dollar. That means the dollar gained momentum on Monday, but the euro continued the pullback on Tuesday. What does that mean for this too? Because the dollar gained momentum on Monday, and then the Canadian dollar continued to fall. That means the US dollar and the Canadian dollar was a strong buy to the upside right on Monday. We did mention this, and you can go check the weekly Forex forecast. But before you go to the weekly Forex forecast, what you should know is we have already compiled a few screenshot to show you about the US dollar and the Canadian dollar, what we said and what did happen throughout the day. So traders, this is what I do think. I do think that we are going to continue selling the Canadian dollar and buying the euro to the upside. I do not think it might necessarily reach the demand zone as the Canadian dollar shows signs of weakness due to the crude oil prices are dropping. And with that being said, traders, I would like to say one more time for those who missed what I've just explained, the Canadian dollar is more weaker than the euro. The euro is strong, and the Canadian dollar, I will just write E here and I will write C here. So the Canadian dollar is more weaker than the euro. That's why we are buying the euro and selling the Canadian dollar. And this is going to result in this target right here, 1.6466, being taken out this week. So the demand zones still, even if we do get a continued pullback, this would still be a great place to look for buying opportunities to take out this level of 1.6466. This would be a fantastic setup to take out this upcoming or during this week. So this is the euro and the Canadian dollar. Let's go straight to the pound and the Canadian dollar. So traders, with the pound and the Canadian dollar, very simply put, we do have the same as uh, the euro and the Canadian dollar, no testing of the demand zones. Why? Because the Canadian dollar continued its weakness on Monday, and then we are about to see this unfold. As you can see, this is a bullish pattern and it's forming a double bottom from this shoulder and this shoulder to the upside. Now we are going to take out the target at 1.8912, of course, and with that being said, traders, this would be a great place to take profit at 1.8913. Now this, after this candle closes, you can take this. If it doesn't make, if this, however you're risking, depend, because we have a certain ways of risking, and we have uh not only certain ways of risking, but we do have rules that we're following based on what kind of entry this is. And with that being said, traders, what I want you to do is, after this candle closes, get in, and then after the entry, make sure that to reach this level of 1.8913, make sure it fits within 1:3 risk to reward ratio. This is the minimum that you should take. But if reaching here is below 1:3 risk to reward ratio, then you can let it run and make that 1:4 or 1:5, or however you would have risked to get to this level. Do you understand? I hope I do make myself clear. And if it does happen that there would be a continued pullback, the demand zones are still a fantastic place to look for buying opportunities from 1.8781. This would be a great place to look for buying opportunities to continue to the upside. And right here at 1.8747 also, this would also be a great place to look for buying opportunities if it does come to this. But what I am biased on is the continuation to the upside, since the Canadian dollar is still continuing its weakness to the downside. So traders, that is it from the pound and the Canadian dollar. We should now be going to the US dollar and the Canadian dollar. And with the US dollar and the Canadian dollar, lastly, because we are not going to deal with the euro and the pound, it is not within the watch list. Today it didn't make the watch list. Why? Because both currency pairs are running at the same level of strength. So with that being said, traders, let's get into this. Yesterday we did get this signal, of course, and after the entry, we did go as high as this pullback. Now we do have a new high from today. Of course, pullback, we are about to retest, and then continuation to the upside. Now, this is what I wanted to show you, what I was referring to when I was talking about the US dollar and the euro, the Canadian dollar and the euro. Now, with the US dollar and the euro, Friday we did have a pullback and a continuation to the downside again on Monday. This is Friday and Monday. And then Tuesday, we are on the same scale of pullback, and then we are looking for continuation to the upside. This is the euro, right? Now, this is the euro and the dollar. The euro and the Canadian dollar, on Friday, we do have a pullback, but on Monday, nothing really did happen, because as nothing was happening, both currency pairs were weak on Monday. That's why on Monday nothing really happened, because the Canadian dollar was weak and the euro was weak on Monday. But what I would like to say, not weak to say, but continuing the pullback. So on Monday, when it comes to the dollar and the US dollar, Canadian dollar, the US dollar rose against the Canadian dollar, and on Monday the US dollar rose again against the euro. Does that make sense? This is how correlation works, traders. Let me see. I do have a screenshot of this happening. Yes, this is the signal that was taken on the very same currency pair, which is the US dollar and the Canadian dollar. Yes, this is the signal that was taken on the very same uh, currency pair, which is the US dollar and the Canadian dollar. Nothing has changed, nothing still remains the same. We are now looking for buying opportunities, of course, to the upside. So, with that being said, traders, this is what we are doing every day with each currency pair. It doesn't matter which currency pair it is. If you want it on your watch list, you will get signals with it. If you don't want it, you will skip it and go focus on the watch list that you prefer to want. And if you do not want all of them at once, you want a specific currency pairs only delivered to you, then no problem at all, you shall receive them. For now, we have already trailed our stop loss to this level here, the opening of today after this bullish momentum. What do I expect to see? I expect to see a continued pullback up until to this level, and then a continuation to take out structure of the new high right here at 1.4079. Of course, the Monday we did, if you check the weekly Forex forecast, you would understand one thing, that on Monday we did get this opening on Monday, starting right on the demand zone, which made this very possible for us to continue to the upside. It is important that you watch the weekly Forex forecast. That video covers what will happen the entire week. This daily video are breakdowns of what what is happening right now, or what will happen in the next few hours. I hope it makes sense to someone who's always watching, so that they understand how we are working. So traders, that is it from me. Thank you for watching this video. Thanks and happy trading. Bye bye. I will see you again tomorrow.